Hello, dear UPSC aspirants. I am Akriti Kanchi, your mentor from Prep IAS, and I'm ready with the must-read articles for 25th March, that is today, right? And I want to tell you all the aspirants who are still not reading newspaper, this is the most organic way of learning new things and remembering points. Yesterday, I was discussing, one of my students who is going to appear for interview. She was an agriculture student, and I was asking her what are the impacts of climate change on rabi crops, about which a news came around 15-20 days back, which though being an agriculture student, she did not remember those points. She only said the pollinators, number of pollinators will be affected, but climate change will also shorten the rabi season that we recently read. And these kind of information can be useful in prelims, mains, and also interview, right? So this is the most organic form of learning about all the topics of UPSC, right? Let's start with the today's newspaper front page. So nothing much in the front page. Recently, in the House of Justice Verma, there are a lot of burnt notes in sacks have been found, right? So there are a lot of discussion and in-house search and in-house investigation is going about it. So our Vice President, Rajya Sabha Chairperson, and Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar has held a meeting with Leader of the House and Leader of the Opposition on judicial accountability. Judicial accountability is very important against the drop of these allegations of recovery of sacks of half-burnt currency, right? This comes under GS paper 2, judicial accountability. So they're talking about NJAC, National Judicial Appointment Commission Act 2014, which was 99th Amendment Act, which was struck down by Supreme Court in October 2015, right? So something of that sort, something of having accountability for judges is required looking at these recent cases. Let's move to the next article, directly to the editorial. Okay, one article in editorial is important. This is not that important. Colossal wastage, that is food for thought. So a lot of food is getting wasted, and now this editor has connected food wastage to our economic losses and also with climate change. Okay, so this comes under GS paper 3, economic issues, food production, also food security, how a lot of people in India are getting hungry, are sleeping hungry, and also a lot of food is being wasted at the same time. So this complex challenge he's trying to address, right? So United Nations Environment Program Food Waste Index Report, FWIR, Food Waste Index Report 2024 reveals that in 2022, the world wasted 1.05 billion tons of food, equating to 20% of all food available to consumers. 20% of all food that is available was wasted, right? And India ranks among the top contributors, right? India is only second to China in this, okay? So China is the highest food wasting nation. After that, India is there. Food wastage they have defined and they have differentiated it with food loss. What is food wastage? Which is edible, inedible parts discarded from supply chain, manufacturing, restaurants and households, etc. And food loss is related to poor storage, transport and handling, right? So this kind of wastage exacerbates climate change, causes economic losses and a lot of major social injustices. When a country filled with malnutrition, hunger, anemia does not deserve this, we need better management, right? So 78 million tons of food are discarded each year, and 20 crore Indians go hungry. 20 crore Indians go to bed hungry. They're sleeping hungry. Not a justified thing. So world's largest food producers, India is the world's largest food producer, but it is facing a challenge of abundant production on one side and persistent food insecurity, right? So household wastage is because of over purchasing. People have a lot of money, over purchasing, improper meal planning. You sometimes making 5 vegetables but only able to eat 2, right? So these kind of things, limited storage, people do not have fridges to keep it, so that things goes wastage. Cultural habit of excess food making, right? During any festivities and all, also leads to food wastage, and poor refrigeration is a reason, right? So food production is very resource intensive. It requires land, water and energy, right? So many precious resources gets wasted. So UN climate change reports that food loss and waste generates 8 to 10% of annual greenhouse gas. Okay, so it's not just food wasting, it's also leading to GHG gases, globally emissions. So carbon footprint is also very high, right? It also is hindering progress in our sustainable development goals of SDG 2, which is zero hunger, SDG 12.3, that is reduce food waste at retail and consumer levels. So SDG 2 and SDG 12.3, right? So he's suggesting a lot of things that can be done, individual actions and systemic reforms like smart meal planning and shopping, efficient food storage, airtight conditioners, creative use of leftovers, composting, donating surplus food, building more cold storage and transportation infrastructure. He's also talking about food apps that can transfer food from food excess places to food deficient places, right? The people, those who have excess food to the people who need food, right? So India's Safe Food, Share Food program, these kind of things can improve the condition. Let's move to the next article, directly to the text and context. So important article here about the urbanization, right? So the urbanization is a very important topic in our GS paper 1, urbanization and its issues related to it. Let's say the need for a localized urban agenda. So the article overall is talking about it's criticizing the top down measures, and it is encouraging measures which is taken in a decentralized manner by the city planning, right? So firstly, you should know several missions have been brought to improve the urbanization. Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission to the 5 urban flagship missions was brought back in 2005. Urban development is a state subject. Now you should know this from prelims point of view. Urban development is a state subject. So how much role can center play? Can it be a total provider, total planner, or can it just nudge state governments and city planners, right? So several schemes have been brought by center: Indira Awas Yojana, Rajiv Awas Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and there are for utilities like basic services for urban poor. Amrut program was there, Swachh Bharat mission was there, right? So so these were good, and from a mobility point of view, this government is focusing a lot on metro rail project, which is very good. 30% of the total union budget is going there, but these are prescriptive top-down approach, which is prioritizing spatial distribution and financial modalities, right? So there should be more freedom and more discretion on the hands of city planners, right? So cities were treated as engines of growth. Infrastructure is crucial enabler. So city needs skilling centers, trade hubs, the writer is suggesting, innovation spaces, prioritizing infrastructure that directly impacts economic indicators, right? So, and it's also criticizing finance commission, that finance commission should give money to city and states without keeping any conditions. Okay, so the conditionality levied on city governments to enhance property tax and make it commensurate to the rise in states' GDP were suggested by 15th Finance Commission, which according to the editor shouldn't be there. Urban development is a state subject. Central government can nudge and guide, but state and local government ultimately have to play the major roles. Municipality, right? Municipal corporation. The current labor migration is from northern states to the southern states. So southern states have different demographic pattern. In states like Kerala and Karnataka, it's rural-urban continuum. So there is no strict city and then villages. You can see a continuity in that, right? You'll not just see a strict differentiation. That is whereas Gujarat's way of urbanization is different, city and then periphery and the villages, right? So these kind of different kind of structure we have found there in our country. So Gujarat style is more comparable to US style, right? So there should be universalization of sanitation, and one size doesn't fit all. Top-down approach shouldn't be done. Cities should be asked to prioritize their plans, and the process identify the most pressing space in which they require money, right? So this is what the article is about. Let's move to the next article. So DNA polymorphism, what are DNA polymorphisms and how do they differentiate between people? So this comes under GS paper 3, science and technology is very important part of GS paper 3, development and their application and effects in everyday life. So DNA fingerprints can establish parent-child relationships and help identify individual from their mortal remains at disaster places. So DNA fingerprints are of several uses, right? If, for example, if child cannot be found, it can be found through DNA. For example, in disaster, a lot of people have died and their face cannot be recognized. It can be done through DNA. Also, to the wrongly accused convict, if somebody is wrongly accused, through the help of DNA, we can exonerate that person and the right person can be found. Okay, so the justice will be delivered. Right, so this is very important. So you should know about what is DNA. This article has explained a little bit. You can read this article. A person's DNA fingerprint can be used for biological purposes. What is DNA? Each cell of individuals have DNA, right? One cell has 46 DNA molecules. 23 is from father sperms and 23 is from mother's egg, right? So DNA is packed inside chromosomes, and chromosome number 3 has 6.45% of total DNA in each cell, which helps similar to this, especially this chromosome number 3 helps in DNA polymorphism. This is a process, okay, which can be used to differentiate one person from another. You should know about DNA. DNA has two strands. One strand, each strand has 4 chemical bases: adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. Right? They are antiparallel and complementary to each other. So an STR is a short sequence of base pairs on the DNA that is repeated some number of times. So you should know the process that they are using to find fingerprints. They are using a laboratory procedure called polymerase chain reaction to make copies of particular stretch of DNA. Right? So due to this process of capillary electrophoresis, multiple STRs can be simultaneously be sized, and many cold cases have been solved by examining new profiles from DNA extracted from crime scenes materials in the archives, and have also exonerated wrongly accused convicts. So DNA is solving and is helping. DNA fingerprint is helping in a lot of different kinds of cases. Let's go to the next article. Directly go to the So here, again, since we were talking about DNA, another use of DNA and sequencing of genome, sequencing of 10,000 TB genome samples completed. So government is trying really hard to eradicate TB by 2025, right? So this is data-driven research to eradicate TB. Data-driven research to eradicate TB initiative aims at using genome sequencing to detect drug-resistant TB and capture unique features of the TB bacterium. Okay, this comes under GS paper 3, how science and technology and its applications are being used to solve the problems of today's world, right? So Department of Biotechnology under Ministry of Science and Technology has completed the genome sequencing of 1/3 of the targeted sample, that is 10,000 samples have been completed, of Mycobacterium tuberculosis, the bacterium behind tuberculosis, right? To improve the understanding of drug-resistant TB. You should know what is drug-resistant TB. Those TB which is not responding to the effect of drugs, have antimicrobial, TB that is called, and let's capture unique genomic features. 7% of the total samples was resistant to a single drug, right? So it is part of data-driven research to eradicate TB. An umbrella program of the Department of Biotechnology was launched in 2022, to get the samples and be able to solve the thing. Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2018 had claimed that to end TB summit, that they will eradicate tuberculosis by 2025. They're trying really hard, right? That is 5 years before WHO's target of 2030. Currently, India accounts for about 28% of new cases of TB worldwide. So whatever number of cases that is happening in the world of TB, maybe today or in the year, 28% is being brunt by the India, right? So this is the issue. Let's move to the next article. India Navy announces maiden India African exercise IOS Sagar. So this new exercise is being started by Indian Navy. This comes under GS paper 3, internal security. The last point in the GS paper 3 is various security forces and their mandate. It's also one of the prelims fact that can be used in the prelims. Okay, so against the backroads, because a lot of issues is happening in Indian Ocean. China is getting there. In Africa, threat of piracy is there. Houthi rebels are also there. Houthi rebels are working from where? Yemen, Sana'a. You should know that. Houthi rebels, right? So because of these issues, Indian Navy has announced initiative for bolder cooperation in the Indian Ocean region. So the large-scale multinational exercise titled Africa India Key Maritime Engagement. Africa India Key Maritime Engagement, AI-KEEM, scheduled to be held with 10 African countries, right? An Indian Ocean ship Sagar, under which the offshore patrol vessels is said to be deployed to the southwest Iowa. So they are trying to be the net security provider. Recently, Prime Minister visited Mauritius and he announced mutual and holistic advancement for security across the region, Mahasagar, by our Prime Minister during his recent visit to Mauritius. The maiden initiatives of IOS Sagar and AI-KEEM are aimed at consolidating Indian Navy's stature of preferred security partner and first responder in the Indian Ocean region, right? So this maiden edition of the India-Africa multilateral exercise AI-KEEM is being hosted by Indian Navy and Tanzania's People Defense Forces at Dar es Salaam, capital of Tanzania. Okay. Another article in the same page. You should know about this. Center is concerned over hospitals not sharing organ transplant data. So Union government has expressed serious concerns over hospitals not sharing data about the organs, because that is important. This comes under GS paper 2, issues related to development of social sector like health. So which is the organization related to it? National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization, NATO. So NATO is a statutory body under section 13D of Transplantation of Human Organs and Tissues Act 1994, THOTA Act. Section 13D of THOTA Act. NATO is entrusted with the statutory responsibility of establishing and maintaining a national transplant registry. There will be a registry which is essential for monitoring organ and tissue transplantation activities, ensuring transparency, equitable organ allocation. It shouldn't be such that only rich people are having access and poor people are not having access, and supporting policy making to enhance organ and tissue donation in the country, right? So this is very important, and government is concerned that they are not working according to the rules, right? You should know about NATO, the act, and what is supposed to work, and there is a national registry. Let's move to the next article, last article, science page. So as ice frozen for millennia thaws, Kashmir wakes up to new risks. So with climate change, several problems are happening, especially in the glacier related areas. So this comes under GS paper 1. Changes in critical geographical features like glaciers. Okay, so what is happening here? Permafrost covers 64% of total area of J&K and Ladakh, and it is important because permafrost it's a source of risk in Kashmir because dams, roads, and real estates have been built over it. So what is permafrost, right? So permafrost is any type of ground. It can be soil, it can be rock, it can be grass, and below the layer below the grass, which is frozen for at least 2 years. That is permafrost. Okay, so most of the permafrost of the earth has been there for several millennia. With global warming, the permafrost is slowly beginning to thaw. So the frozen is becoming it is getting unfrozen, right? So with dramatic consequences, and permafrost have been known to store a lot of greenhouse gases, right? Especially the methane, which is a very potent greenhouse gas, and it can be climate pollutant, right? So it has a lot of effects. The structures will be unstable, and the GHG which will be released, which will be bad. Ladakh has the highest extent of permafrost, right, which should be, and the major reason this permafrost is thawing and the ices are melting is because of the temperature increase, overall rise in surface temperature, which that is global warming, right? Other human activities are also there: deforestation, land use change, permafrost cover, and they are affecting permafrost cover and its stability. Infrastructure development like dams, roads, real estate development are also affecting permafrost, right? Tourism and associated development are also having pressure on permafrost. Glacial lake outburst flood is also seen to be having affected by this. The Central Water Commission reported last year that between 2011 and 2024, the coverage of glacial lakes and other water bodies has increased, which is not good. So glaciers are melting, the glacial lakes are rising, and it can lead to floods, right? So it is not a good thing. A glacial lake outburst flood had happened in Sikkim and South Lonak Lake, right? Degradation is also likely to affect groundwater and the availability of river water. So these are certain issues, and military infrastructure is at risk. Many strategic roads passing through permafrost and the degradation could have severe implications for connectivity. So environment impact assessments though are being done, but still there are chances that it is still leading to some glacial lake outburst flood. Last article of the day is about, again, a similar article: glaciers losing ice at record levels around the globe, UN. This again comes the same topic: changes in critical geographical features. This is a Pastori glacier in Peru, which used to host ski competitions, but now it is, people cannot go there because of the risk of ice fall, right? So you can see actual things happening, right? So glaciers around the globe are disappearing faster than ever. Last 3 period has seen the largest glacial mass loss on record, according to UNESCO report. 9 trillion tons of ice lost from glaciers since 1975, around an ice block the size of Germany with thickness of 25 meters, right? It is accelerating climate change, right, caused by burning of fossil fuels and global warming. Glaciers lost 450 billion tons of mass in 2024 alone. The highly accelerated loss has made mountain glaciers one of the largest contributors to sea level rise. Now, sea level rise will have another problems, right? Raising the risk of flooding, and 1.1 billion people living in mountain communities, they will suffer because of glacier loss, right? And the last data of this article, between 2000 and 2023, melting mountain glaciers have caused 18 of global sea rise. So 18 millimeter global sea level rise has happened since 2000, about 1 per year, and every millimeter rise can lead to 3 lakh people exposed to annual flooding, according to World Glacier Monitoring Service, right? So since 2018, has risen 1 per year, right? And with 1 3 lakh people are getting exposed to annual flooding, which is not a good news for us, right? So that's it for 25th March. Thank you.